Welcome to the Chromatic Connection, a space where vibrant minds collide and the hue of human expertise blend into something extraordinary. I'm your host, Fatima Alshirawi, and every week we dive into a kaleidoscope of ideas, stories, and wisdom shared by top industry experts. Diverse minds meet and ideas shine in full color. This week, I have a very special guest who is going to teach us all about type 1 diabetes. How do we identify it? How do we take care of ourselves? And what do we need to know about the future? So the story with Dr. Milena is very special because she is one of the only doctors that I can say gave me back a normal life as a type 1 diabetic. So welcome, Dr. Milena. I am very happy to have you today on my podcast.
Thank you, Fatima. It's very special. Thank you for the opportunity and having me here.
Great. So today we're going to dive into a lot of questions I have for you. So
yes,
be ready.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, of course, the first question would be, how long have you been in the field of diabetic care, and what made you interested in specifically going into this specification of diabetic care?
Yes, good question. Well, I just want to add one thing before we start, actually, two things. First, all the things that we talk here cannot be taken as medical advice. People who are listening us, they need to search their specific physician. And also, I want to give a small gift before. It's a pancreas. It's from ADA. Are you put here?
Oh, that is amazing. Thank you. Oh, I'll be wearing it for sure.
Yes. So I was drawn to diabetes field since the beginning of the university, when I witnessed someone from my family, actually my aunt. She was struggling to control her glucose levels, and unfortunately she faced a lot of complications. And it's so interesting how I always think there is much more in the room to improve their patient's life, especially in my family, to make us there healthy. And dealing with chronic disease is challenging, but it's also very rewarding. So I'm happy that I decided to go for this field.
Yes. Usually, I've noticed, like, whenever somebody's passionate about something, it's a personal story or a personal experience that they have, that they become an advocate for such a thing.
You're right. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember in Christmas time, my cousins coming to home and complaining about my aunt. Oh, she's not eating correctly. You need to take care. So I always have this in my mind.
Yes. So now we'll dive into the technical part. So I have a lot of technical questions for you today. So first thing I want to ask is, what tests should be done to identify if you are diabetic? And also, what are the GAD antibody tests that is required?
Okay, good. So basically we have two types of diabetes. For type 1, majority of the patients, when they develop with symptoms, extremely thirst, losing weight, fatigue. And the cases, they go to the hospital and make the diagnosis inside the hospital with the glucose, with HbA1c, so in the blood tests. And to confirm the diagnosis of type 1, we need to have the antibodies. We have more than 9 types of antibodies. But anti-GAD is one of the main antibodies that blocks the pancreas and how the pancreas works. So blocks the insulin production by the pancreas. So we can check the antibodies in the blood, but anti-GAD is only one of many of antibodies. For other types of diabetes, gestation, and type 2, we have different tests. But we need to remember that type 1 can happen in any kind of age. We always think that type 1 is like a kid disease or from the teenagerhood, but no, even patients with 90 years old, 8 years old, they can have they can develop type 1.
Yes, that's correct. And that's what happened with me. I got it at a much later stage in my life. And for me, in terms of testing, it was that they told me I was insulin resistant. And then after, I did change my diet. I tried to stay healthy, but at the same time, sort of my stress level was high. So it started increasing. And this is where, honestly, I saw the gap and the difference between Glucare Clinic and how they approach testing and how your standard clinic. So in my case, for 4 years, because they did not do the antibody test, they did not identify me as a type 1. And it is very important that I feel that the antibody test must be done.
Yeah,
regardless of what type you would be, because at least you make sure you differentiate what you are.
Yes, the treatment is different. So, for example, in the clinic, we need to do this in the first visit.
Yes.
Along the HbA1c, the glucose, the antibodies must be there.
Yes, great. What phenomena are commonly associated with type 1 diabetes that you have observed in your practice?
Okay. Yes, this is very interesting also question because type 1 is a challenge and is a daily-based disease. Né? I say the patients, they cannot take vacation of type 1. Yeah. Each decision that you take, you need to think about diabetes. If you go to a restaurant, if you're going outside, depends of what you're going to eat, depends of the weather of the place you're going, the trips. So these fluctuations, from the glucose fluctuations the patients type 1, they face, in my opinion, what is the most challenging part. The hypos, almost 100% of the patients, they are afraid of the hypoglycemias. Yeah. Luckily, now we have all the technology, the sensors that we're going to approach later. But these fluctuations are very challenging. And some patients also, unfortunately, they face more severe complications, for example, DKA, the diabetes ketoacidosis. So we need to remember that the body doesn't produce insulin and starting to produce ketones to have energy. And this can develop a DKA. During over these years, I have been practicing more than, let's not put so much years, but at least 12 years. I see in my office also patients with burden of the disease. So the mental, the emotional burden to have in type 1. As I told you, to deal with taking many decisions during the day. How many insulin units of insulin the patient need to put, if they calculate the amount of carbs correctly. So this can, we call this diabetes distress. And I see this quite often.
And can you tell me also about the phenomena where your blood sugar goes up between like 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. to this phenomena?
Yes, interesting. Yeah. Yes, the down phenomenon. We have mainly two the phenomena, Somoji and down. But down phenomenon can happen when the patients in the morning, they release more adrenaline, cortisol, and can spike the glucose in the morning time. And the Somoji effect can happen because we, for example, patients, they have hypoglycemia during the night and the hyper as rebound because the body always tries to defend after hypoglycemia. No? So the symptoms, for example, of hypoglycemia, the patient starts shaking, trembling, sweating, is because of adrenaline released in the body. So this can cause, it's a defense of the body. So every time that we have lows, we have a defense. And this is common with type 1. So depends of the sugar at night, depends how was the sleep. We know nowadays that it's not just the insulin, but the lifestyle, the exercise, the food. So many decisions can interfere in the glucose level.
Right. Very interesting. So just to recap, so we have your hyperglycemia, which happens when you are exerting a lot of energy or you haven't had food for a long period of time, correct?
For example, fasting.
Yeah, from fasting. Yeah. And then we have the distress, which is when you are burnt out, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we have the down phenomena, which we said what happens between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. And this usually has to do with the level of insulin you have taken. Sometimes where it's not enough, so it goes
and also
high.
growth hormones. So we need to remember around in the morning 4, 6, 8 a.m. we release a natural, physiological, our body release some hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, growth hormone, and these hormones are contra-regulators insulin. So they block how our insulin works in patients with type 1. So we call this the status of more insulin resistance. So some patients, they need to take more insulin in the morning.
Mm-hmm. And can you explain also, for example, like when you do a high intensity, and this was something you taught me. I was under the impression, like, for example, if I do high cardio, my sugar would go low. So I would, like, for example, take an orange juice in case before. But then you explained to me that sometimes when you do a high intensity, it actually goes up and you need to take a correction before that. So can you explain more about that?
Yes. Look, type 1 and exercise, we can stay here until midnight talking because of depends the duration of exercise, the type of insulin that we do before, and also the food that if you're going to take before, for example, if you do exercise before or after the lunch or the dinner. But in general, aerobic exercise, for example, walking, running, swimming, they tend to drop the glucose. Every time that we move, especially the calf, the legs, these big muscles, they consume our glucose. For example, myself, when I use a sensor, sometimes when I run, my glucose reach 68. So because the muscles are consuming and takes this glucose from energy so we can do our exercise. But depends of the exercise, for example, lifting. We release more growth hormone, and this can contra-regulate the insulin, and we see in some patients high levels on the sensor. And also the muscles. If we have sensor here, for example, in the arms, we are moving, we are lifting the arms, we're going to see more glucose in this part of the body. We need to remember that levels of sugar for glucose we have in any kind of a liquid in your body. If we cry, we have a glucose in our tears. So, for example, in the past, the patients, how they were doing the diagnosis of diabetes, they have excess of urination and there's a lot of sugar in the urine. So they saw small, like ants in the urine. So we need to remember that the liquid of our body changes and the glucose changes in every moment of the day. So it's interesting for exercise. Patients with type 1 and pump, for example, they need to adjust the pump, the insulin pump, 1 hour, 1 hour and a half before. Or if you're going to eat after, the amount of insulin for your quick insulin needs to be less because you already have drop your glucose during the exercise. So you don't need a huge amount of insulin if you're going to eat close to the exercise. But luckily, as I told you, we have now tools, we have the sensors, we have different types of ways to deliver insulin, and we can monitor more this on real time when we can tailor the treatment. I think this is the most important thing for the last 10 years. Now, we have been using CGM at least 15 years already.
Yes, I think the CGM is the best invention ever.
Yes, because we are looking to have the watch, but until now we don't have it.
But so far, honestly, the CGMs that are around has really made life much easier, and definitely much easier in terms of even like taking your insulin, knowing when to correct it when necessary, so you avoid the spikes, which is great because usually these spikes is what our issue is, and we will be going further into how much damaging the spikes are.
Yes, sure.
Great. Please explain the medications available for managing type 1 diabetes and how do they work? What are the differences between them? So today you have brought us an example
Yes, I brought a cup
I
of
want you to specifically explain, like, see, why I want to talk about this, because people have this misconception that there is one type of insulin for everyone, and people are also not aware that there is like the short insulin. They don't understand what the long the insulin is for. So if you can walk us through step by step.
Yeah, sure. First, I'm going to start to explain how is our normal physiology of insulin production. So in one patient without diabetes, our pancreas produces insulin 24 hours, independently of what we are doing. If we are running, sleeping, talking, our pancreas produces a basal amount of insulin. Okay, and every time that we eat, of course, depends of the amount of food and the type of food, our pancreas produces these spikes of insulin to take this glucose from the food and carry on our body so we have energy. So this is the natural physiology. Patients with type 1, because of the autoimmunity blocks the insulin production, they don't have the basal insulin. So we need to do the same way out of the pancreas must do injecting the insulin. So we have a long-acting insulin nowadays. We have, for example, Tresiba, which is ultra long-acting, that lasts 24 hours. We have other long-actings, for example, Basaglar, Glargina, they last around 20 hours. So usually the patients, they take once to try to cover the whole day and the whole night. And for the meals, to cover the meals or to cover the snacks, we need to have the quick insulin. Nowadays, we have the ultra quick, the fastest insulin that usually start acting in 10-15 minutes and can last around 4 or 5 hours, depends of the patient. And the big challenge of the patients type 1 that I see this often is to put the insulin on time. Because, for example, if you're in a restaurant, the food's not there, or for example, for the kids, they don't know if the kid will eat the whole food. So this is the most difficult part for type 1. But usually we need these two types of insulin. Then can be delivered in pens. For example, I brought here a couple of pens that we have the amount here. So for example, patient needs to have 10 units, which is more interesting because in the past, for example, 20 years ago, they had syringes.
Yes,
and it's very difficult to use the syringes. So the pen is more easy to. And also we have the ways to inject in a pump. That is not for everyone. Pump needs a little bit more education. For example, here in UAE, we have the Omnipod, we have a Medtronic, then can transform the ultra rapid insulin in a basal. So every minute, the patients, they can have delivered the insulin. And also I brought the Afresa. I don't know if you saw.
No,
I think we
me.
never discussed this. It's quick insulin, and you can just use it if you inhaler the insulin and goes to the lungs. But this is just quick insulin.
So
also,
how long would this last?
A couple of hours only. It's just for the meals. It's just for the quick because here's you put like a SIM card like we see in the mobiles with the amount of insulin. For example, here we put like 4 units. Then you're gonna have your meal and you inhale the insulin. It's called Afresa.
And this is available now here in Dubai?
It is. It is already a couple of years. But there's some side effects. The patients, they have a little bit of cough. We need to monitor the lungs function. So it's not so easy. And it also needs to be on the refrigerator. But it's interesting if the patients need to correct quickly. It's interesting.
All right. And also, can you tell me about the emergency insulin? So you had once told me that I needed to keep it in case, when I think a person has a hypo, there's a emergency.
We are talking about the glucagon problem.
Yeah, the glucagon. Okay. Yes. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, so some patients, they have hypoglycemia without symptoms and they just faint. So glucagon, it's an injection. That can be also, there's some ways to put this injection or even inhaler powder that increase immediately your glucose and the patient can wake up. But this glucagon must be administered by other, not by the patient. So this is kind of emergency until the hospital arrives. But this usually we use in patients when they don't have symptoms. Many years of uncontrolled diabetes, some patients, they don't have symptoms of hyper and even in the hypos, which it becomes like more difficult to control. We call this awareness hypoglycemia.
Yes, that is one thing I have noticed over the years. Like now, I think I've had it maybe 14 years or something. And there are times where I have a hypo, but I am not feeling anything. So it's true. And why does it happen? Like over time, is it that the body gets so used to the state?
No, it's a complication of diabetes already. It means that for many years uncontrolled, the glucose starting stuck in the nerves, stuck in the ways that the body needs to respond, and the patient doesn't respond more, producing adrenaline. So the symptoms of low sugar, they completely disappear. So it's a complication of many years of uncontrolled glucose. But again, luckily we have the CGMs because we have alarms.
Yes.
Yes. So if it's dropping, we can put some alarms, and we needed to keep checking the sensor. But unfortunately, this happens in patients with type 1 for many years of uncontrolled disease. I have been seeing some patients, and it's a criteria to use insulin pump. So patients with awareness hypoglycemia, they have indication to use the pump. Especially now that we have automated pumps that is connected to the CGM, and will switch off in case of hypoglycemias. So this kind of complication, the patient needs to go directly to use the pump.
To the pump, yeah. Because that's very interesting. You started talking about the pump. That was my next question. So this is the stage where a person needs to use the pump? Or is it
it's a medical indication, but type 1s, they can start the pump anytime.
Okay.
But I always do analogy in my office, and I say pump is like a Ferrari. We need to know how to drive.
Yes.
If you don't know, if they give me a Ferrari, I don't know how to drive. So we need to learn. Because you need to change your cannula. We need a lot of education on pump. Type 1 needs education. Yes. Counting carbs, putting insulin on time. But pump is something extra. If you don't change your cannula or your refill your insulin in 3 days, your insulin is going to stop it being delivered, and you can enter in coma, in ketosis. So this is very serious. Unfortunately, I already saw patients, they were tired, they didn't change the pump. Oh, let's change the pump tomorrow. Then they woke up in the hospital. But patients type 1, they can use the pump any time of the treatment. And some patients also, they get tired, then they say, doctor, can I come back to use the pens? Then I come back to the pump. Yes, we can do this.
Yeah, this is what I've noticed with, like, even in our support groups when we exchange notes. A lot of people who were on the pump prefer going back to pens because they said that they have more of a sense of control with the pens. Because I think also they get so used to the insulin automatically coming in their body with the pump that they kind of don't know how to judge sometimes. So with the pen, at least you know how to judge. With the CGM and the pen, you know how to like control yourself.
Yes, it's interesting. But also I heard that to trust your life in a device 100% of the day.
Yes.
It's difficult. So the patients say, if the pump, they always think okay, if the pump stops working. So to trust in the CGM, for this reason I mentioned about the diabetes distress, to deal with all these things, CGM, the pump, change the cannula, plus also the family.
Yes.
type 1 is not a diagnosis of one patient. It's a diagnosis of the family.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes I see in my office kids and the mother comes, doctor, I'm giving so much attention, for example, only to my daughter with type 1 and the other kids. So we need to remember that as type 1 is not just, take your insulin and count your carbs. No, it's involved with so many things. Nowadays, with the sensors, we can connect it as the teacher in the school, we can connect to the mother. So everyone, for example, can receive the glucose of the patient, for example, in a kid when they are in the school. So we need to have more education, because if you don't have the teacher who knows, or if you're gonna eat in another like neighbor's house, how we're gonna manage this?
Yes.
Nah? So
that's
it's
true.
very
As we
interesting.
said, it takes a tribe.
Yes.
Great. All right. So now we go into the next question. How does the insulin pump work compared to the traditional insulin? We talked about that, but what are the, I would say, benefits in the long term for having the pump? Now, what I have noticed, like say with the Omnipod, okay? When I had come to the event in Glucare about the tech in diabetic care, the Omnipod was something new that I discovered. And I would consider being on the Omnipod, for example, when I travel, okay, where you don't know your schedule, right? Like you're going on a tour. It may take longer, or you're going with a bunch of friends and plans change. So you don't have the convenience of and also keeping the insulin pen cool is difficult, even though now, yes, there are devices, but still, even when traveling on the plane, sometimes the insulin gets damaged. So for me, when they told me about the Omnipod, I was like, this is great, at least for, I think, is the Omnipod like for a week you can have it, or longer?
The pod you need to change every 3 days.
Every 3 days,
yes.
Yeah. But you see, you have the freedom of that 3 days,
Yes, gives you freedom, yes.
So my question is, in the long term, do you see that the Omnipods are going to take over the insulin pens, or you feel that the insulin pens will still remain as a choice for patients?
Well, first I'm going to answer based on the studies. When they compare the pumps with MDI, which is multiple insulin doses per day, the pumps present better results. Okay, less hypoglycemia and better time range in the sensor and better HbA1c. So nowadays we prefer patients type 1 using pump, but again, it's another word. Omnipod for the kids is marvelous, because when they run, they play basketball, they play football, they can use, it's free of cannula.
Yes.
So in the clinic, for example, majority of the kids, they have the Omnipod Dash that is available here. We're going to receive the Omnipod 5, hopefully in a couple of months, that is automated, which is connected to the CGM with Dexcom, for example, and will also switch off in case of hypoglycemia.
So you can do it from the center, basically.
Yes, everything is going to be connected, like the Medtronic.
Okay.
The Medtronic is connected with, but Medtronic is connected with the sensor of Medtronic. So this automated pump, some patients, they confuse the name automated with artificial pancreas. This is another thing. Artificial pancreas, we don't have it yet, because the pancreas produces glucagon, and we'll need a pump that also injects glucagon to control proper the glucose. But what we have available nowadays is automated pumps, which are connected with the sensor, and will switch off, will stop the insulin production the moment that the patients put their target as low. For example, some patients we put 90 or 80 or 70, and they offer more tight control. For example, if automated, we put the target 110 or 100, and the patients tend to keep it the whole day in around these levels. But again, pump, and it's more education. If you don't change the cannula, if you don't refill your insulin every 3 days, or sometimes the pump, it's a machine, it can break.
Yes.
Nah? So you need to carry more, especially when you go for a trip. We need a lot of education on pump. But the studies shows more superiority, and I believe the pens will be there. Nowadays we have the smart pens. Also, we can be connected to the sensor. But until now, we don't have the amount of insulin on board. This is another big thing, because what we want is to have one sensor with the glucose and another sensor to see how much we have insulin on board.
Right.
Because some patients, for example, when they use the pen, they say, doctor, I did the correction 10 units. But from these 10 units, how much already dropped my glucose? And the glucose not going down. Should I inject more? And if they inject more, they reach the lows.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
So unfortunately, we don't have this, but the pump tends to solve this problem. So I prefer to use the pumps, but some patients, they want to be connected all the time. They feel uncomfortable. So depends each patient's preference, and we try to personalize what the patient wants.
Okay. That's true. And also with the CGMs, I feel even the readings are also very different. So once when the G7 came out, so I had my Libra and I had my G7. I remember in the gym, they were looking at me like I was crazy because I had like 2 CGMs. I'm like, I'm doing a study here on myself.
Yes. And type 1, the patients, they spend more time taking decision by themselves than with the physician.
Yes.
So you did brilliant.
Yeah, so I wanted to see, and there was quite a marginal difference between like the Libra and the G7. But I also feel it really depends on your body and the sensor, like how it works. So as much as I like the G7 and the reading was actually closer to accuracy, but at the same time, like the complication of like having it connected with the center, we needed another app. So so with this one, it was easy because it was directly connected to the sensor. So I preferred it, and also it stayed longer. You know, the other one you have to change every 7. This was every 14. So it was more convenient in that way. So so that's what I want to actually point out to the audience, that even with the sensors, it's very personalized.
Yes, exactly.
Like how even with your insulin, that's also very personalized. Yeah.
And the good thing is that each year they launch a different sensor.
Yes.
Nah? So in the past, we have just Dexcom and Libre, and nowadays we have been receiving different sensors, and it's good for us, good for the patient, so everyone can decide where they want to use it. Huh?
Yes. Now we go into lifestyle, okay? So what are the recommended lifestyle modifications or treatment for individual with type 1 diabetes to prevent or manage complications in such as you said, ketosis and different complications that come with diabetes. So what can we do, first of all, before, I guess, we're diagnosed in terms of a healthy lifestyle? And then also after we are diagnosed, what can we do to prevent any complications?
Okay. Let's split this in different things. First, I want to explain, because I see often patients, they come and say, doctor, what I have done wrongly to have type 1? Or even like parents, what I did during the pregnancy that I make wrong, that my kid has type 1. So type 1, we cannot prevent. Until now, we don't have the perfect answer why someone develops type 1. Again, it's autoimmune disease, and there are different reasons to develop one autoimmune disease. So we need to stop and say, oh, I did wrong. Why this happened to me? This is common on the denial phase of the disease. But of course, the moment that we discover the disease, we have ways to prevent and have, of course, the glucose controller, cholesterol, blood pressure, monitoring the kidney function, the eyes, doing always the eyes checkup, checking the circulation of the legs. The moment that we monitor this often, we are able to detect any small, minor abnormality before the situation gets worse. Because the complications of diabetes, they are progressive.
Yes.
So my suggestion is always the patients come every 3 months to check the HbA1c. But regarding lifestyle, is the lifestyle for what we do for everyone. For patients with type 2, with obesity, we need to have at least, what is the recommendation, 150 minutes of exercise during the whole week, amount of sleep. Nowadays is at least the recommendation is 7 hours per night. And again, we have many tools to track ourselves. We can use rings, we can use watch to see how many steps we are doing, how many hours we are sleeping. So this to try to keep a routine. I always say the body loves routine. The body loves cycles. The moment that we have time to wake up, time to sleep, have a routine, the body's gonna be more harmony.
I agree with you, and definitely this regular checkup. Like honestly, initially, like before, what I used to hear about somebody who has type 1 diabetes, that like they lose their sight, or as they said, like certain diseases with their legs and things like that. But now that I have it and I understood more, I always explain to people, I'm like, that is not the case. That's the case if you do not take care of your diabetes. If you're not healthy, then it will lead to it. But not everybody has those symptoms. And it's only if it's mismanaged, that is the state you read. So definitely, like for me, honestly, I always tell you it's a blessing because it forced me to be healthy, to have a routine, and like I feel I'm living like the healthiest lifestyle I've had my entire life, because it makes you, also forces you to control your stress, take the time out, sleep enough, eat properly, do your exercise. So in a way, it helps you to be very disciplined.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Type 1, we need to be organized. Patients with type 1, they need to put insulin on time, having time to eat, because if you don't be organized, the chances to have the spikes are higher. Then you need to put more insulin to correct it, then you go for lows, then you can become like the roller coaster. But for the lifestyle, we always try to advise the patients. Regarding exercise, what are the patients want to do? Some patients, they are afraid to go to the gym, for example. Sometimes go to the gym is a little bit of uncomfortable. For the, some patients, they prefer just to run or to do yoga. But we need to remember, we need to move. The moment that we move, the glucose tends to be more controlled for any type of diabetes, type 2, type 1, and even gestational diabetes. But it's very interesting how people are afraid to think the lifestyle will replace the treatment for type 1. If you're just going to walk, I'm going to stop my insulin. No, insulin is always be there. For now, we don't have the cure of type 1. We wish maybe in 10 years, I think we're going to also approach the other more modern therapies, but we don't have the cure yet.
Very true. Very true. And I remembered a story with my sensor whenever I report to you when I'm on holiday, and you're like, your reading is wonderful. I'm like, because I have 20,000 steps.
Yes, exactly.
I'm moving all the time.
The moment we travel, we take care more, because they say, I'm going to eat something, so we need to walk, especially.
Very true. How does it help the overall health. So we said that yes, it helps us, for example, monitor our blood sugar, know when to do correction. But let's approach it, for example, from a mental health perspective. Do you feel that it gives a sense of sort of security and a sense of normalcy, having the CGMs as something as part of your indicator for your daily life as a type 1 diabetic?
Okay, so first I want to explain a little bit about what we do so the patients and everyone who is listening can understand. In the clinic, we are a hybrid model. So the patients, they come to us, they do the whole journey, and we connect all the devices. Now we are connect also the Oura Ring to understand about the sleep, the steps per day, the stress. But the moment that the patients are connected to my team, to my virtual team, the coaches, the dietitians, the diabetes educator, one of the targets is to help them managing this out of the clinic in any kind of situation. In a trip, in a restaurant, or at home when they get sick. So they don't need to go to the hospital. For example, a couple of days now we had a flu season finishing, and we can advise the patients through the app. Okay, so increase your insulin, check the amount of a liquid that you're having, let me prescribe your medication. So avoid the patients to go to the hospital.
Yes.
So apart from you reduce it, the time of the patient, you can reduce also the costs.
Very true.
But again, it needs the whole team behind, and also the patient education. In the beginning, I'm in the clinic 4 years, I thought, for example, patients with like more elderly patients, older patients, they will not accept the app. I was thinking. Do you know nowadays we have patients in the app with 78 years old, around 8 years old, they are connected. So the technology brings this another view on how we can manage the things, and of course after COVID.
Yes.
Because
because
it's
of the
very
hybrid,
it was very difficult time for everyone that we splitting more virtual things. So I think this is the part that the virtual team is helping us to understand more about the education, and also the coaches with the diabetes educator, they can approach this diabetes distress. Managing, for example, we have patients with a ring that we see the patients are 9 hours stressed. And so the coaches can see this and manage with the patients in some meetings. But also what I like in the clinic that we do the community meeting. You can also approach this because everyone changed their own experience. I always think like everyone has something to teach. And I think this community, the meetings with type 1s is marvelous. You agree with me?
Yes, absolutely. And we'd like to explain to the audience, if you can give us in more detail this model that Glucare follows, which is more integrated medicine. So if you can walk us through the process of, for example, a new patient that comes in, how is this integrated medicine approach applied to a new patient? Like, as you said, we were talking about coaches and dietitians and so forth. So how would the process, the step-by-step one process of a new patient coming to Glucare would apply this new approach to treating type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, well, every time that you go to Glucare, it doesn't feel like you're in a hospital, right?
No.
Yes.
For me, it's my second home.
Yes, this is good. So when they arrive, the first consultation, and they come to the triage, they check with the bloods with the nurses, they collect everything. And nowadays we are doing all the image tests, for example, CG, retinal scan. Now, by the way, we brought one retinal CVD, is to check the cholesterol in the eye. So very interesting, also machine. So then the patients wait as all the results being read in the cafeteria. Then they come to us, and after the physician consultation, they are connected with all the teams. So we connected the Glucare app with the device, the CGM. Some patients also, they receive the blood pressure machine, and they were ringing now. And since the first visit, we have a virtual team that monitor often these patients. Through the chat, every time that the patients, they change the sensor, we give them the feedback, and we can adjust the treatment. We can adjust the treatment virtually in like depends if the patient's in another country, is traveling, we can adjust the treatment. We don't need it to the patients to wait to come back in 3 months to adjust their insulin or to adjust their medication. So along the side of the medications, we have the lifestyle coach, we have now EMS, for example, in the clinic, and the team is tailoring each patient. This is, I always say, this is a dream. Because I have been treating diabetes for more than 14 years now, is what I wish that all the patients, they have this worldwide. Yes. Have the diabetes educator with them, having the dietitians to show the pictures of the food, helping them to counting carbs. But it's more difficult to count carbs.
Yes. No? You're telling me, and I always have this joke that I am so bad at math, and God gave me a disease that is all about math.
Yes, diabetes is a lot of numbers. Yes. It has a time range, a target is number. But to help, we have different tools nowadays. We have different apps to also counting carbs. But do you have the picture of your food and give us by AI how many carbs, how many proteins did you have? This is very interesting.
Yes, definitely. And this is a key thing of a patient to look for when they are looking for a doctor for diabetes. Number one is the knowledge that the doctor has. Then the sense of the community, the easy access. And an example of this easy access, definitely I can give my story, which you remember, I was having the biggest panic attack. So I was at night, for the audience, I was tired and I had to take my long insulin, which basically pumps very little insulin in you till morning. And by mistake, I took the short insulin, which was like 10 units. And I just had a panic attack, and I remember I messaged in the group and I'm like, I have taken it. What do I do? Do I start having like double orange juice? Do I eat chocolates? What do I do? And then you explained to me that this will only last for 4 hours in your body. So don't worry. Yes, take a juice or something just to keep up the sugar. But the fact that I could refer to you and even if it wasn't directly you, it's always somebody in the team that will support you, that will contact you, will get the information and answer me that second. This literally gave me the comfort that I don't have to, because you are constantly living in a panic attack with blood sugar, you know. But it gave me the comfort that even though I did something that I have no knowledge of, I had that instant support there and then, you know. Of course, now I make sure I look at my pen before taking anything.
By the way, this is a very common mistake, unfortunately. Despite of the pens are different colors, this is already happening a couple of patients. And we ask them to label, to put in different part of the fridges, but unfortunately it's going to happen. But look how interesting. You were able to reach us and you didn't go to the hospital.
Yes.
Exactly. Because maybe in other situation you could go to the hospital and increase your time, your stress, the cost, different things that we can solve virtually.
Yes, and as you said, it doesn't even feel like you're coming to a clinic because like everything is there. So when I come do my blood test, within an hour it is ready. Meanwhile, I'm doing all my other tests. I'm having a great coffee in the cafe. So everything is done. I think it's one of the only clinics that actually has the blood tests in the clinic, correct?
To have this facilitate a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the patients in 1 hour, they don't need to come back, because the traditional services, the doctor requests the tests, then the patients go home, waiting more 3-7 days, then book again.
Yes, that was my journey before. Like it would go on for like weeks, and so definitely I'm a true believer of the system at Glucare. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Amazing. All right. So now we have one last question for you. I think we got everything out of you. When you look at like the future of diabetes, like for example, like at this point in time, I would say like the futuristic thing that truly has helped the type 1 diabetes was, like, for example, the discovery of Manjaro. So that really helped type 1 diabetics to even reduce taking the daily without having the concept of the pump. It's something in between, we would say. At the same time, it also controls. But like any medication, there are pros and cons to it.
Yes.
So for example, going from this current time, what is your idea, or what do you hope for the future of diabetes, and what are, I would say, the new things coming forward? Yeah.
Yes, of course, we hope for the cure, for sure. But I will just give one step back and explain about medications for type 2, like Ozempic, or medications for, or Mounjaro, or medications for obesity, like Wegovy, that we are extended the use for type 1. Okay? So it's off-label for type 1. So patients type 1, they cannot stop their insulin to use Wegovy, to use Mounjaro. But if the patient has type 1 plus overweight with complications or obese, we can use these medications. And we have different studies to prove that reduced the amount of insulin, both basal insulin and also bolus insulin. And so this is one thing. From the other thing, why, of course, we expect the cure, but what we've seen this lately for the last 5 years, especially in the conference, we see more immune-based treatment, for example, stem cells. We have some big companies, for example, Vertex is one, that they produce stem cells, like beta cells that produce insulin, and they put in a capsule, and they made a surgery and put this capsule inside the patients. But these are early stages of studies. So phase 1, phase 2, each medication had different stages to be allowed to be produced. So these stem cells are still phase 1 or phase 2. They receive FDA approval at least for less than 2 years ago to start studying humans. So it's very new. We need to, I believe it, maybe hopefully in 10 years we're going to have more things. But now with what we have, my expectation is to have more AI, machine learning, so I can tailor the treatment of the patients. If we have one mechanism that I know, if my patients, according to the blood test, they're going to have more chance to have nephropathy, which is the kidney complication. And I have one medication that protects the kidneys. With this AI, machine learning, I can prescribe the correct medication. We call this precise medicine, is what I expected. And of course, the pancreas, or the artificial pancreas with more automated pumps that produce glucagon and that injects glucagon and insulin both, that we don't have it yet. But I believe in maximum 10 years we're going to receive.
And at the clinic, have you guys started using anything with AI, like for the treatment yet?
Yes, so all the devices are connected, and this one type of AI. And we are installing now more automated answers. For example, the coaches, the dietitians, we're going to be more automated.
Okay.
so we can transform the service in 24 hours.
Right.
So the patient don't need, because now we work from the time that 7 to 7.
Yes.
So the idea, the moment that you becomes more automated, you can cover 24 hours.
Okay. Excellent. Great. You're always innovative at the clinic. I love that.
Thank you.
So I would like to close with you sharing a remarkable story that you have experienced with a patient in all these years of your experience. What is one story that stood out and you really saw this patient completely transform?
Wow. But first, I remember your consultation, your first consultation. But I have one patient in mind. She's a very young lady, around the 30s, and she's type 1. And she came to me with very poor glucose control, not in adherence on the insulin regime, and she was willing to become pregnant. But the HbA1c was like 9, and she had a miscarriage before. So it was a very difficult first and second consultation until we tailor all the treatment with Dexcom, pump, and she was able to deliver a boy. Amazing. And now the boy has 6 months.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
that is really an incredible story.
Yes, it's interesting because patients with type 1, they always need to bring the HbA1c below 6.5 for a better outcomes. No? And in this case, we made it.
Fantastic. Honestly, it's stories like this that really inspire you and also give hope, because a lot of people also have the misconception that if you're a type 1 diabetic, you can't get pregnant, or it's dangerous to get pregnant. And that's one of the things in the support group that I met so many people who had it since they were born, and they had children and had a full life. And that gave me hope, because at the beginning I was scared, like, oh, what if I can't, have children? And these are like the inspiring stories that like motivate you to move on,
Yeah, exactly. Yes, these patients, every patient is special to me, but it is.
And you do make us all feel very special.
Thank
really.
you. Thank you. Yes.
You make us all feel like we're your favorite.
Everyone is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Milena. This was so informative. I really enjoyed my time with you, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hopefully we have another opportunity again.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And that's a wrap on today's Chromatic Connection. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their brilliant palette of insights with us. If this conversation sparks something in you, hit subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who'd love to add more color to their perspective. Until next time, remember, life's too vivid to stay monochromatic.